Hello dear students, today in this episode we are going to study the different types of tourism like ecotourism, urban tourism and wine tourism under the title Eco and Urban Tourism. And the topic can be studied under the following subheadings. They are Introduction to Ecotourism, Ecotourism and Biodiversity, Concept of Sustainable Tourism Development, Tourism and Environment, Urban Tourism. Coming to Introduction to Ecotourism. Ecotourism is a sustainable form of natural resource based tourism that focuses primarily on experiencing and learning about nature. It encompasses all forms of tourism focused on nature where principal motivation is to observe and appreciate nature and traditional cultures living in natural areas. A typically type of tourism which occurs in natural areas and should contribute to the conservation and protection of such areas. Therefore, ecotourism is generally organized for small groups and involves an element of education and interpretation. It must provide positive impacts on the natural and socio-cultural environments. Ecotourism is an offspring of tourism and nature which has gained importance to accommodate the growing number of environmentalists who wish to visit and experience pristine natural environments. It is a travel to fragile, pristine and usually small scale. It helps to educate the traveler, provides funds for conservation, directly benefit the economic development of the local community. Mr. Fennell and Mr. Martha Honey have identified the following features of ecotourism. It creates interest in nature. It contributes to protection and conservation nature and biodiversity, long-term benefits to local community. It has minimum negative impact. It is sustainable in nature. It helps for education and study about environments and its conservation. It fixes ethics and responsibilities to tourists and locals. It respects the local culture. It supports human rights and democratic movements. It provides direct financial benefits for conservation. Ecotourism concept got more recognition in 2002 when two major world platforms discussed and deliberated about this subject. These two summits were World Ecotourism and the World Summit on Sustainable Development. Prior to these two summits, there were numerous preparatory conferences were held for discussion. Scope of ecotourism. Ecotourism was born out of marriage between leisure travel to wilderness areas and the desire to protect the dwindling biological diversity. It touches all sectors of economy like goods and services, markets, employment, education, conservation of nature and biodiversity and culture. It empowers local community and provides them economic benefits. It helps for designing and building sustainable development of tourism, keeping in mind the ecological and environmental factors and developing green tourism concept. Ecotourism joined the ranks of sustainable industries which were called to meet global challenges. The UN had the foresight and courage to place ecotourism on a larger backdrop with global climate change. A number of guidelines on how to accomplish the objectives of ecotourism from a product to a philosophy. it ultimately helps the rural economy and prevents people moving to urban areas. Coming to ecotourism and biodiversity. Nature-based tourism became prominent in the last 4 or 5 decades. Since protection and conservation is the main principles on which ecotourism is developed, it helps for conservation of biodiversity as well. Monitoring and maintaining an area becomes more critical if open access is allowed without limiting the numbers. In many countries, there is limit to number of visitors to national parks. Depending upon the carrying capacity, visitors are restricted. Then only protection and conservation is possible. Based on the Berlin Declaration and within the framework of Biodiversity Convention, Global Directive for Sustainable Tourism Development plans, especially in ecological sensitive regions, are to be drawn up. According to this principle, sustainable tourism would be a part of biodiversity conservation. The relationship between tourism and biodiversity is all the more significant because of the fact that major tourism destinations in tropical and subtropical regions exhibit a high degree of biodiversity. Education to local community about the importance of conservation is a prerequisite for success of ecotourism concept. Visitors should also be educated about the importance of conserving the biodiversity. Measurement of impact of ecotourism. The measurement of economic, ecological and social costs and benefits of ecotourism is different from that of traditional tourism. The ratio used in these measurements, particularly those evaluating economic profitability, must go beyond measuring financial profitability. It should take into account a number of other factors like social condition, community involvement, economic benefits to all the stakeholders, etc. The measurement of economic costs and benefits of traditional tourism is based on a ratio of estimated profitability on the tourism investment using a methodology of market surveys and of load factors or occupancy determination. Calculating the appropriate coefficient of occupancy determines the profitability of the tourism investment. Therefore, operators aim to achieve and exceed break-even occupancy to ensure return on investment and getting maximum profit. The gross operating result is the basic indicator used to measure the economic cost and benefits of tourism investment. The decision to go ahead with a tourism project will be made by comparing the budget available for financing the investment and with the total amount of the investment without taking into account the environmental costs or the social impact of the project. For ecotourism projects, this type of economic and financial analysis is now sufficient. The cost benefit analysis of ecotourism projects cannot be just calculated in terms of potential profitability only, but should also take into consideration cost and benefit of local population. In many case studies, the cost benefit analysis of ecotourism projects have shown that even with an accommodation occupancy rate of 20%, local population income increases substantially. Measuring economic, ecological and social costs and benefits of ecotourism requires a different parameter. The contribution of ecotourism to conservation, potential and actual environmental and socio-cultural impact have to be taken into consideration for proper measurement. Moving on to concept of sustainable tourism development. The idea of sustainable development is of recent concept. This idea was promoted by the Brundtland Report in 1987 and acknowledged by the international community at the Rio Summit in 1992. It was again discussed at the World Summit on Sustainable Development in 2002. It has been much debated in UN and other international forums by the academicians, scientists, NGOs and other concerned people. The most important emphasis has been on environmental sustainability only. The global effect of overusing the natural resources may lead to undesirable consequences. The concept of sustainable development is much wider than just environmental sustainability. They have a number of other features also. Sustainable development is a move to make a destination from its current competitive position to a more desirable future competitive position. They adopt a long-term strategy for a destination development for its sustainability. Sustainable tourism development involves vision, objectives, direction and commitment. During 1980s, it became apparent that major global environmental changes were taking place suddenly and silently. The world slowly started realizing the changes taking place in the global environment. The concept of sustainable tourism development came from this realization. It was first mentioned in 1987 in the report published by the World Commission on Environment and Development. It identified the sustainable development as development that meets the needs of present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own demand. In other words, it means utilizing all the resources at present, making full provision for use by the future generations. Planning for sustainable development. The sustainable development approach implies that the natural, cultural and other resources of tourism should be conserved for future use. This approach is important because most tourism development depends on attractions and activities related to natural, environmental, historical, heritage and culture patterns of the destination. If these resources are degraded or destroyed, then tourism may lose its identity. UNWTO has defined sustainable tourism as tourism which leads to management of all resources in such a way that economic, social and aesthetic needs can be filled while maintaining cultural identity, biological diversity, ecological process and the essential support system. Over the last 2 decades, sets of principles have been developed to put these ideas into practice. These principles identified with sustainable tourism have 4 pillars: economic, ecological, cultural and community sustainability. Economic sustainability. It should be made profitable in short and long term basis. Involve all the stakeholders in the planning and implementation process. Form supply chain mechanism from micro level to multinational companies. Provide professional training to all the concerned persons. diversify the product by a wide range of tourism activities. Certain percentage of income generated shall be used for further development. The economic benefits from tourism activities shall be shared equitably among all the stakeholders. Ecological and environmental sustainability. Environment may be defined as the sum total of all conditions that affect the development and life of all organs. The human environment consists of physical, biological and social influences. Since man's life is regulated by air, land, water, flora and fauna, they automatically becomes the constituents of man's environment. This environment is in continuing state of changes. The environment includes not only the immediate surroundings but also a variety of matters connected with the human activity in relation to ecosystem. Next is tourism and environment. The relationship between tourism and environment is one of the delicate balances between development and environment. A good number of types of tourism are directly related to environment such as adventure tourism, wildlife tourism, beach tourism, water sports, etc. With the rapid development of tourism all over the world, many concerned people and environmentalists are more concerned about impact of tourism on environment. The degree and intensity of the impact depends upon the level of contact between tourist and host, the stage through which the destination is passing, types of tourism, seasonality, type and scale of development, specific activities undertaken at the destination, etc. Tourism impact are categorized as direct and indirect or on-site and off-site. The following are some of the impacts: soil erosion and compaction, disturbances to wildlife, spoiling of natural vegetation, littering and vandalism, water and air pollution, reclamation of land for destination development. Realizing the importance of environmental impact from tourism, an effort is made to conduct a research to establish correlation between the two. The study was undertaken to examine the impact of tourism on environment in the global perspective. The study suggests some of the strategic options as to how tourism can be used as a tool for conservation. It suggests the integration of tourism into overall policy for sustainable development, focusing on environmental impact assessment, strategic management of tourism development involving all the stakeholders, technological adoption and regularly monitoring its implementation. Plans for developing sustainable tourism project. Sustainable ecotourism plan, policies and program at international, national and local levels have to be well developed. Integration of ecotourism policies into sustainable development plans have to be properly designed and developed. Land use planning, use of natural parks and protected areas and developing suitable strategies between development and conservation have to be suitably planned and executed. Development agencies' program on ecotourism and their role in funding for investment have to be decided well in advance. Capacity building, training and education are considered a key issue for the sustainable development of ecotourism. Without adequate training and education of all the stakeholders, starting from governmental agency to private players and to the consumer in matters relating to regulation, certification and monitoring, it is impossible to achieve the objectives of ecotourism. Building sustainable ecotourism products, multi-stakeholders cooperation for product development, especially in protected areas and biosphere reserve, is a great challenge to planners. Suitable market research, marketing techniques and promotional methods have to be evolved. Advanced environmental education and information to be given to tourists regarding their conduct and behavior in the ecotourism spots. The opportunities presented by ecotourism and the needs for its careful management are apparent in all regions of the world. The fundamental principles and issues relating to ecotourism are similar in all regions of the world, although there are differences in resources, ecosystem, socio-economic structures in each region. Ecotourism seems to be the best practice to prevent negative impacts on prevailing ecosystems, local communities and traditional culture, and to be a viable source of economic benefits for the local communities. Protected areas in ecotourism development. The importance of protected areas in the management and development of ecotourism should be recognized. In some cases, they may require additional resources in addition to revenue generated from ecotourism system to fulfill these obligations. It was recognized that protected area authorities need to work with local stakeholders on the development of ecotourism. The local authorities should play an effective role in ecotourism planning and providing a bridge between national policies and local communities. Urban tourism. Urban tourism simply denotes tourism in urban areas. Urban-rural dichotomy has been around for at least centuries. Rural settlement were perceived on a small scale with majority of their inhabitants depending on land-based activities such as agriculture, horticulture, floriculture, animal husbandry, looking after domestic animals, etc. In contrast, urban settlement were considered larger dependent on non-agricultural occupation like manufacturing, transport and other service industry. Urban centers. What should be the population number for calling a place as urban center? There is no fixed number of people which constitutes the urban centers as it goes on changing. A town of 500 people has very little in common compared to a city of 1,000,000 residents. There cannot be a fixed number to declare a place as urban. It depends mainly on the occupation of the people. The study of urban tourism. Until recently, the study of tourism in large cities had not attracted much attention from the academics. Books and articles written about big cities had hardly mentioned about the economics of tourism, though in these cities a large number of people are employed in tourism industry. However, in recent times, some importance is being given about the tourism industry in these urban centers. Academics studying tourism have also neglected the large city as a destination. The main reason may be because most attention is given for holiday tourism, which is mostly in non-urban centers. Towns and cities have always been visited by people living outside their areas, but generally these were not considered as tourists. The expansion of trade and commerce in the last century, accompanied by growth of business travel to on regional, national and international level. Business travel to different cities for purchasing materials and selling finished goods has increased considerably. From the 19th century onwards, specialized trade fair or exhibition were held particularly in Europe, drawing a large number of exhibitors and customers, and their overnight stay stimulated tourism. The other service providers like hotels and transport operators developed slowly. In the 20th century, the emergence of the multinational companies and in the post-globalized era, business travel increased very fast. This type of business travel is not confined to purchase and sale of goods only, but extended to visits to nearby destinations. In the last 3-4 decades, international business and international travel have become a common feature in many cities. Naturally, this has led to the expansion of hotels, resorts, fast food centers, travel and transport facilities including land, water and air, etc. A large number of travel agents and tour operators started offering a variety of tourism products to these business travelers. Thus, urban tourism has become very important segment of tourism industry. Wine tourism. It is a new concept developed in the last century. Wine tourism means organizing travel to grapes producing and wine tanning areas. The travelers can appreciate, taste and purchase wine. Wine tourism consists of visits to wineries, vineyard and restaurants known to offer unique vintage, as well as organizing wine tours, wine festivals or other special events. It is a kind of tourism highly developed in many regions around the world. It could be as simple as shopping on a wine shuttle in Napa Valley, or as complicated as renting a villa in southern France for a month. Wine tourism is an opportunity to learn about the people, culture, heritage and customs of an area. Wine tourism in Italy. Like in France, wine is a traditional product in Italy. Wine tourism is highly evolved in Italy and producers offer other services as well. They have agri-tourism system of providing accommodation in the farm and making it easy to explore and enjoy surrounding areas for the tourists. Production and consumption of wine is deeply rooted in their culture. United States of America. Napa Valley, a world famous wine producing area, is one of the most popular tourist destinations in California. More than 5 million visitors visit each year, often overcrowding the roads on summer weekends, which is the peak season. Harvest season is during September and October. Wine tourism in Spain. Wine tourism is a flourishing industry in Spain. The wine industry in Spain has opened up the world with an entirely a new range of wine styles as per the demand in the market. Wine tourism is gaining popularity among the wine consumers in Spain. Wine tourism in India. India is also venturing into new tourism zones. Long known as the temples and palaces of country, India is venturing into wine tourism. The focus of Indian government lies on planning the wine ads in Maharashtra, Himachal Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. Hotels, restaurants, resorts and spas are coming in these states with wine tourism. Steps are also being taken to provide education about wine production, processing and marketing. Farmers are being given technical assistance and know how to produce the best quality wines. Concession to attract investment to the wine industry is also being given by the state. It is one of the best ways to take traveler off the routine life to a wine yacht trip to drink and taste the wine and enjoy different types of wine. Some of the Western countries have learned the art of winemaking and have been promoting their land as a wine tourism destination. We find most of the wine consumers in Italy, France, United States of America, Spain, Hungary, Germany, Argentina, Portugal and even South Africa. India may join the list in the 10 years. Dear students, I hope you got some information regarding the topic. We will meet in the future episode. Till then, take care. Thank you.